You guys are now being recorded, so be good. And this is an interactive presentation. So if at any point you want to stop and ask questions or jump in there or give your 2 cents or give your personal attestations to what's being said, please feel free to do that. I'm happy to stop and do that interaction. That's kind of the whole point of being live, right? So the first thing is, right, when we think weight loss and you think about diet culture, what comes to mind? Like how are we supposed to lose weight according to diet culture? What are we supposed to do?
Calories.
Calories. Yeah, it's all about the calorie, right? And we get this idea like, oh, well, it's this simple, right? You eat less, you move more, and you lose weight. It's that simple, right? This is typically what comes to mind for most people. Okay? And along the same lines as eat less, move more is this idea of CICO, calories in, calories out, right? And one thing that I want to get very clear here is that this has been something that has been embedded in our minds by diet culture, because by oversimplifying this idea the way that diet culture has, well, it's just as simple as calories in, calories out. What it does is it builds shame and self-deprecation. Because if it's that easy, why can't, see, I'm already gonna cry. Why can't we do it? And I think you have to understand that self-deprecation sells. It's a marketing tactic. I don't even know why this slide of all the slides is gonna make me cry. But they want us to think that it's more simple than it is, because that's what sells. Right? If you think that you're somehow broken because your calories in and calories out isn't working for you, hey, look, I've got this magic pill that I will sell you and it's going to speed up your metabolism and I will fix you through this pill, right? It's an easy marketing tactic. It's not this simple, okay? And this is the one thing that I want to get across, is that we sit here and hurt ourselves, sometimes physically and mentally, because we think it's supposed to be this simple, and it's not. So we do have to abide the law of thermodynamics, right? So the changes in our body stores, and I'm saying this very carefully, because there are different ways that our bodies can change. It's not necessarily fat loss, like, oh, if you want to lose fat, you eat less and move more. And there's so much more to it. It's changes in overall body stores. So it can also be changes in muscle mass. It can also be changes in bone density, right? We're not just attacking fat when we're trying to manipulate this balance, this energy balance equation, okay? And so, and I'm also specifically saying energy in versus energy out instead of calories in versus calories out. And you might think, well, I mean, we're just, synonyms here, words for words, but I think that it makes a big difference. For me, recognizing that all I'm doing is converting energy into different forms so that it's usable for my body, it makes my body feel so much more powerful. I feel like I have more power over what's happening versus this calories in versus calories out. So when you think about changes in body stores, you've got this energy in versus energy out. Now, energy in could probably be a topic all its own. It's like you would think, well, energy in is just what you eat, right? Well, kind of, except for not every single calorie that you eat is absorbed. Right? Not everything that you ingest turns into a useful energy source for you. And also, when you think that you're carefully tracking, first of all, most people are terrible at tracking, right? So you think that you're doing a good job at tracking your calories and you're like, yeah, I'm weighing my food and I've got all my nutrition labels and all the things. We're actually pretty bad at doing a good job at that consistently. But more importantly, the labels that we put all of our faith in are often wrong, right? By FDA says that they can be wrong up to 20 to 25% on their calorie count. Okay, so think about that. If you think that you're ingesting or you're eating 1,500 calories a day, it could really be 1,800 calories. You say, well, what's 300 calories? Well, think about that. If you're eating 300 calories more than you think you are every single day for 7 days, that's 2,100 calories, which means you're squeezing in an extra day's worth of calories in a week, and you don't even know it, right? So this energy, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but energy in and of itself is complicated. It's not as simple as what we're eating. So keep that in mind when you're doing all the calorie tracking, like, oh, well, I only ate so much. Well, yeah, are you sure? And the only way to know is to go into like a metabolic lab, and it's not very reasonable to actually get accurate readings on that. Energy out, though, energy out has 4 main components. It's the resting metabolic rate, your thermic effect of food, your non-exercise activity, and your exercise activity. I'll define them all here. Okay. RMR is just the energy that your body burns while at rest. Okay, so this is the energy it takes for you to, like, you know, fire your brain or make sure you keep breathing, pump the things that you're not really thinking about that still have to happen to keep you alive. Okay, so that's what your resting metabolic rate is. The thermic effect of food is the energy used to digest. Okay, so this is the energy that you need the energy used to digest all the food that you're eating. Okay, non-exercise activity, this is just the stuff that you do. Oh, where'd you go? Oh, sorry, I got very excited there. This is just the energy used to do things like sit upright, balance yourself, to walk from here to the kitchen, doing the dishes, right? This is the energy that you use on everyday activities that you're not really thinking about as being like energy, you know, as using your energy. This isn't you working out. This is you just living your daily life. Okay, and then exercise activity, this is, you know, this is exactly what you would expect. This is just your intentional usage of energy, working out. Okay, so these are the four main components. Now, the next slide is probably my favorite slide of the whole thing because I think it's the most illuminating. Because when we think about this, like, oh, I want to lose fat, I'm going to eat less and move more, we automatically start thinking about working out. Okay, that's well, I need to start working out more, right? How many times have you told yourself, I need to work out more? Okay, this is the percentage of the energy that all of these comprises. Okay, so your resting metabolic rate, just the energy it takes to be, is 60 to 75% of your energy use. Whereas your exercise activities, the things where I just need to work out more, it's only 5 to 10%. Okay, and then you've got your thermic effect and your non-exercise. So when we're thinking about trying to eat less and move more, which we're going to debunk that here in just a minute anyway, right? We are focusing on the thing that impacts us the least in terms of energy use, right? We focus on exercising instead of trying to ramp up our metabolism, right? Wouldn't it be fabulous if your body burned more energy Netflixing? Like, wouldn't that be wonderful? Maybe we've got to get our metabolisms up. We're focusing on the wrong part of this equation. Okay, so here's your metabolism. This is your scientific. I thought I would put it out there for the science geek, but nobody really cares about that. Really, what is it? It's this process of converting food to energy, okay? And when we're talking about energy use, we are talking about calories. Okay, so we measure this energy in terms of calories. So the metabolism is what burns our calories. It's that fire burning thing in your machine that takes all the things that you ingest and turns it into energy that your body can actually use, okay? Here's one of the things that might be a little bit mind-blowing, okay? And this is the point that I really want to hit home. A slow metabolism requires fewer calories to support your body energy needs. Okay? It can do what it needs to do on less. A fast metabolism requires more calories to support the same needs. It can do it, but it needs more fuel. Okay, now let's think about that. In terms of like our evolution and our biological history, what makes more sense for our body to want to do? Does it want to perform on more energy, or does it need to want to perform on less energy? What do you think our propensity is towards? Yeah, take a gander. Be brave.
I mean, we want to rest, right? Like we want to take it easy and just slow. We want to be slow.
Yes, our body.
Yeah,
Oh, go for it, Alicia.
I was gonna say it'd be more efficient, right? Like we're trying to achieve efficiency, which is slow.
Exactly. Our body wants to be able to do what it needs to do on less energy. Because think about it, it's not all that recent in our history that we've been able to walk down the street and get whatever the hell we want at the local grocery store. We had to work really hard for that energy. We had the hunters and the gatherers, and they were working all day just to get food. Our body tends to want to be more efficient, and more efficient means slower metabolism. Okay, right? So, oh, sorry, that was right. So a slow metabolism is actually more efficient metabolism, which might seem a little counterintuitive, but it makes 100% sense from an evolutionary perspective. And a fast metabolism is less efficient. So if you are not giving your body the proper signals that it's okay to burn energy, it's going to tend towards a slower metabolism. It is designed to do that. It's trying to keep you alive, okay? So when you think, people think, well, I have a slow metabolism, or like this is another diet marketing technique. You're metabolically damaged. It's not damaged. You're not damaged. In fact, you can't damage your metabolism, right? Your metabolism is always converting this food into energy, okay? It's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing to keep you alive. Okay? So you're not damaged, but you might be what is called metabolically adapted. Okay, so let's talk about what that is and how that happens. Okay, okay, so our body needs a minimum amount of calories every day just to run at the most basic level. So this is very similar. It's called BMR, your basal metabolic rate. It's very similar to RMR. Two are often interchanged when you read just articles. They are different, but they are very similar. BMR, I like to think about it as like if you are in a totally fasted state and you're just kind of unconscious, sleeping on a, I just picture like a body in a lab who's totally fasted. There's no food to digest. Okay? It's the bare minimum that we need to keep our body alive. Okay? It's the bare minimum of energy or calories that we need to survive. There are several ways to estimate it. Right now, the most popular way is the Harris-Benedict formula. Okay? But this is the bare minimum that our body requires to just be. Right? And that's not even to digest or do anything. It's just to keep the heart going and the brain firing and all of those fun things. And it's based on your height and your weight and your age. Although there are new studies coming out, by the way, saying that your metabolism doesn't change with age. That's a societal thing. But anyway, that's maybe another talk. Larger people naturally have higher BMRs. They need more energy to sustain larger masses. Okay. But they're not as small as you might think. Like mine, for example, my BMR based on the Harris-Benedict formula is what, 1390. It's about 1400 calories. That means that I need to be ingesting 1400 calories a day just to sustain. That's not to support any other function than just to be. Now, here's the important part, is your BMR is not stagnant. You can change it. You can change it based on your diet, based on your consistent intake, and based on your body composition. Okay. A BMR, for example, for somebody who's got a muscular stature is naturally higher than a BMR for a body who does not have as much muscle on it, who's got less muscle mass. Okay. So we have the ability to manipulate our BMR. Now that's really, really important, right? Because if you think about this energy in and energy out equation, we're trying to manipulate the energy out and we're doing it all wrong. Right? We're focusing on this exercise, this manual exercise, where we should be focusing on that RMR, which is very similar to our BMR, okay? Because that's really, if we can get that boosted, then we're doing ourselves like a large favor in the long run. So let's think about what our body's going to do when we eat less. Okay, when we eat less, you're asking it to do the same amount of stuff on less energy. So what is it going to do? It's going to adapt. It has to survive, right? Our body adapts to the signals that we give it in order to maintain survival. That's its sole purpose. It doesn't care if you're 100 pounds or 500 pounds. It's going to adapt for survival, okay? And what it's doing is it's trying to maintain that homeostasis. So if you're going to give it less and ask it to do the same amount, then it's going to become more efficient. More efficient means slower metabolism. Does this make sense? How are we doing? So when you start eating less, you start slowing down your metabolism. It has to, it's adapting. You're sending the signal, listen, I need you to work, but I need you to work on less. Can you do it? And your body says, yep, I can. It slows down, okay? Our metabolism slows down to become more efficient. It has to keep you alive. Okay. Now let's think about what happens then when we start moving more? Okay, now this is really, really important. It totally depends on the type of movement. Okay, when you start moving more, your body needs more energy, right? Well, here's the thing. Let's think about this. If you're doing endurance cardio, right? Because that's one of the things that we're like, oh, if you want to lose weight, you got to do cardio, right? You got to do the cardio. Go run. Well, let me tell you, I've got some news for you. Cardio, and I'm not here to bash cardio. I also like to run. I know that we have some running fanatics in the audience. There are a lot of health benefits to running, cardiovascular and all sorts of, there's a mental release. There's a lot of good things about cardio. But if you're doing cardio to lose weight, you're not doing it right. Okay? Cardio doesn't make you thin. Why? Because if you're doing anything that requires energy that's sustained over a long amount of time, your body has to be more efficient at using energy. Right? It makes sense biologically. If you're going to ask it to do a lot of work for a long time, it has to be efficient with the way it uses calories. If your body is adapting to be more efficient, what does that mean for your metabolism? It's slowing down. It's slowing down. So if you're trying to move more by adding more cardio into your life, or if you're using cardio as a way to get thin, I guess I should say, because I don't want to bash cardio. If you like cardio, do it. But if you're using it as a way to get thin, it's not the most efficient way to do it. Okay, it's sending your bodies really a lot of mixed signals here. You're saying slow down, slow down, slow down. And here's the other thing to think about too. Is that long distance endurance type movements requires us to use fat for fuel. And so you might think, oh, well, then it's going to delve into all my fat stores and it's going to use it. I think this is what the diet industry was building on. Like, oh, okay, well, if you do cardio, it's going to dive into your fat stores and it's going to use that for energy. And that's not actually what happens at all. So what happens is your metabolism slows down because it's trying to do more on like be more efficient. Okay, but also if you do prolonged cardio, like if this is something that you sustain for months at a time, your body starts recognizing that it's going to need more energy later, and you know what it does? Stores more fat because it wants to make sure that it has storage for it to use on your next 5-mile run. Right? So this is very counterintuitive. But this is exactly what our bodies are supposed to do. It's supposed to keep us alive. So if you're just trying to work it to the bone by doing cardio, your body slows down to be more efficient and also says, oh, shoot, she's doing a whole lot of endurance stuff. I'm going to need some fat. So I'm going to store it. Does this make sense? How are we doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a little mind, right? And the other thing though, is that like, and again, I'm not bashing cardio. I love it too. There's a lot of benefits to it. It's just a terrible way to lose weight. I'm gonna try to see if Facebook, I got a message saying the video stopped on Facebook. Are we okay? On Facebook, I can't tell.
It kind of has been cutting in and out for me, but it always comes back on.
Oh, this is weird to see me with a delay. That's hilarious. Oh, goodness. What's worse than listening to yourself on a recording is watching yourself on a recording. Thank you, Andrea. Oh, yeah, see, I love that. Like Victoria just shared in the chat. I say it all the time. I didn't lose weight running and no one will. And that's the truth. I didn't lose weight running either. Yeah, I lost weight by eating. Okay, so this kind of begs the question, like, what are we going to do? We need to leverage our metabolism to jumpstart fat loss. Okay, so there's a couple ways that we can do that. Okay, so let's speed it up. So again, our body, the whole purpose of it is to adapt so that it can survive, right? So what it's doing is it's trying to adapt to the signals that you're sending it. And so I think here, maybe instead of saying send your body signals that it's okay to burn calories, it's like send your body signals that it's okay to release energy is a better way to say that. So You do that a couple ways. First of all, you have to eat. Okay, if you slash your calories down to 1,200 calories a day, you are doing yourself such a disservice because your metabolism is going to slow to try to match those needs, right? And also if you consume less calories than your BMR, it goes into a bit of a panic, right? Because it needs this minimum amount to sustain and you're not even getting it. So then it starts slowing even quicker. Does that make sense? So you have to be really, really careful with cutting calories. Now, there are absolutely healthy ways to do that, right? But if you're going from, especially if you're a yo-yo dieter, right? This is the crazy thing too. If you're a yo-yo dieter, your body's more efficient at becoming more efficient. Does that make sense? It's like, oh, here she goes again. Here's a famine. Phew, slows that metabolism right down. Okay? Which really sucks because when you're in that yo-yo, up and down, you lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose. It's really, really, really frustrating. And you're like, I don't understand, right? And this is exactly where I was when I was topping the scales at 215, 220. I was eating less and moving more and still gaining weight. And you just think, well, how is that possible? I have screwed up. I was metabolically adapted. My metabolism it was very slow. It had to be. I had messed it up, right? I had told it for years that it had to sustain on nothing, right? So the second I gave it anything that was starting to store up fat, this is what happens. So you need to fuel yourself. You can't be afraid of food, but you can't just fuel yourself on crap, right? It's got to be the good stuff and nutrient dense stuff, right? So don't be afraid to eat. Now, if you are metabolically adapted, it's totally possible to get out of that. And there are ways to know if you're metabolically adapted. For example, if you are maintaining a weight at a low calorie, like if you are one of those people who are eating 1,200 calories a day, and like if you eat any more and you start gaining weight quickly, you're probably metabolically adapted. There are other indicators. If you've ever got like a hormone profile done, your hormones will be all over the place. If you have inconsistent or periods, right, or they just stop, you might be metabolically adapted. Now, there's a whole lot of other things to be played with that hormones, which will be a whole nother training on another day. If you're cold a lot, you might be metabolically adapted. Again, these aren't like, oh, I'm all of these, I must be, but these are just some indicators that you can look for. If you are metabolically adapted, you can absolutely fuel yourself in a way that you can get your metabolism to be less efficient. Okay, but you have to do it slowly. So here's the thing. If you're metabolically adapted and you jump right up to like 2,000 calories a day where you should be, you will gain weight fairly quickly. You have to, just like becoming adapted is a slow process, to come out of that is a slow process too. So you have to be really patient with yourself. So like increase your calories by 100 or 200 a day, okay, which is not a whole lot. That's like an apple. That's like just increasing, like, let me eat in my case, a bag of apple chips, because that's what I do. Right. So you don't have to add a whole lot of bulk to your diet to get yourself out of that metabolic adaptation. It's a little bit at a time, right? So that you don't put on a lot of weight and freak yourself out, because there's a mental component that goes along with it. If you are not metabolically adapted, then when you start reducing your calories slowly, you'll see movement on the scale. Okay. So that's another thing, is like, if you eat your way up to a sustainable amount of calories, this is the beautiful thing about our metabolisms. If you get to a sustainable amount and then you do drop for a little bit to lose some weight and then bring it back up. I don't know if you've ever heard about calorie cycling, okay, or read feed days. These are all things that we do to try to prevent metabolic adaptation. Okay? We don't want our metabolisms to slow down. Okay, so when you do go into a diet phase, you'll drop your calories, and then every so often give it a little bit more. Just say, no, we're good. I don't need you to adapt. I'm fine, right? That's why, like, you've heard of these, and some people use refeed days as cheat days. They're not the same. So be careful. Refeed days, you're eating more of good stuff. You're not eating pizza and brownies. Okay, so be a little bit careful about that. Okay, and the second thing that we can do is start doing strength and resistance training. Okay, so if you're one right now who's doing a whole lot of cardio, trade in some of your days to build some muscle, because what's going on when you are strength training, you're sending your body signals that you need to be stronger. It makes sense. Okay, if you need to be stronger, your body needs to build. It makes sense. You're building muscle. So when it needs to build muscle, it's no longer concerned with being more efficient. It's concerned with building, and to build it needs more calories. Okay, so if you do strength or resistance training and you start building muscle, muscle is more expensive to maintain as far as energy. It takes more calories to maintain muscle mass than it does fat mass. So once you start building muscle, you get this automatic bump in your resting metabolic rate, your RMR, okay, because it has to work harder just to maintain where you're at. Now, here's the problem. The second you start under eating again, it will start paring down muscle. Okay, it starts taking, because muscle is expensive to maintain. So, and a perfect example to see the differences in body composition, endurance versus like strength, is endurance. If you think about the body composition of like a marathon runner, right? They're typically tall and slender. They don't have a lot of muscle mass, versus a sprinter, right? They're strong. They have a lot of muscle mass. Okay, so and then you have to think about like, oh, okay, well, like the endurance runners. It's interesting if you start training for a marathon. There's some. It's called like runner weight maybe, or runner gain. Okay. The interesting thing about starting to train for a marathon is that if you don't fuel properly, right? If you do what we all do when you eat less and you move more, which is like the equivalent of us eating less and then going into too much cardio, okay? What you find, right, is that runners actually they can start gaining weight, right? They start running all this time to train for their marathon, and they're putting on weight. It's very, very frustrating, and it's very, very common to happen in the running world. To combat that, they do a whole lot of fueling and recovery, right? They eat a lot more than you might think, and they have to recover to combat the stress that they're putting their bodies through with this, with running. Okay, strength training is different. It has a longer lasting effect, okay, which means that you're burning more calories in the long run than you are like a cardio session. Okay, and then this is another thing, like at some point I'll address like all these myths and stuff, but strength or resistance training does not mean that you're going to go step out on stage like Arnold Schwarzenegger. This was another marketing ploy in the diet world, toning, right? Oh, I just want to tone. I don't want to build muscle. I want to tone. Do you know that those are the same thing? Okay, the market industry, the diet industry made up this tone up idea because they recognized that they were losing money in gym memberships because women didn't want to get strong. So instead of saying, oh, well, okay, you're going to get stronger, they said, oh, no, you're just going to tone up. Do you know to tone up, you have to build muscle? Those are the same thing. Okay, but it's just another marketing tactic. Right? So don't be afraid to do some strength or resistance training. And when you're doing that, it doesn't have to be like heavy weights either. It can be like the bands, okay, or kettlebells. You can do body resistance without any, like what is that called? There's a name for it. It's eluding me right now, but like just like your self body without weights at all. Okay, but anything that's going to put resistance and try to build strength, you need to start sending your body the signals that I need to be stronger. So it says, oh, it's okay for my metabolism to work on building, instead of it's I'm trying to pare down muscle and I'm trying to be more efficient with my calories. Does this make sense? Isn't it crazy? Is it crazy? It's a little bit mind-boggling, right? Because we just kind of do it all wrong. So I encourage you, one, to do a self-assessment to see, to determine whether or not you're metabolically adapted, okay? And if you feel like you are, work on upping your food intake. And I know you guys, sorry, this is me crying again. I know that is really, like, it sounds ludicrous to tell somebody who wants to lose weight to eat more, but I can tell you from experience that this is what you, like, I did. I just trusted the process. I was in such a bad place that I was willing to do anything. So I started eating, which is not something that I was historically known for, if anybody knows my story. Okay. And all of a sudden, and here's the other thing, is that with me, I've always been athletic. I've always been a runner. I've always done something to move my body, even when I was at my heaviest weight. So for me, when I took the dive into nutrition, I stopped training, period. I cut out all of my exercise and I focused solely on nutrition, which was really, really hard for me to do because I really had to trust the process at that point that I was going to eat more, not exercise and still lose weight. And I lost 40 pounds without any exercise. It's mind blowing, but you have to trust that your body will do exactly what it's supposed to do. Now, there are some things that need to be considered like hormones, which is something that we can talk about on another day. I'm happy to do. Okay, but don't be afraid to fuel yourself. Questions? Is this useful?
Yes, it hugely was.
Good. The intermittent fasting, yeah. Oh man, there's so much to say there. So yeah, so Alicia, for those of you in Facebook, was asking about the intermittent fasting craze. And the intermittent fasting craze is really it's another one of these fads. It's going to be a fad like keto. It's going to be a fad like Whole30. All these fads are really trying to accomplish the same thing, and they're trying to get you to consume less. And they're doing it in this case with just reduced times with window eating. And one reason that it can be really successful for people is because within that window, they don't necessarily restrict what they can have. And so there's this idea of food freedom, but only within a certain window. And, you know, it's funny to me because I was reading an article this last weekend about like, you know, who like the split is, you know, should you do a 16-8 split or should you do a 24 split or there's so many different splits out there. It's all accomplishing the same thing. Okay, so intermittent fasting, I think anyway, is just a fad. It's just one way to get people to eat less and be more aware of what they're putting in their mouths. There are some I say this wrong every time, autophagy benefits for doing long-term fasting, but you have to do long-term fasting for like 3 days, right? Which is not the same as intermittent fasting. Okay? So be a little bit careful. So it depends. So Chanel said, what do you suggest regarding fueling for cardio? It depends on your goals. So if you're using cardio for weight loss, then I would recommend cutting it out altogether. If you're using cardio for other reasons, one thing you can do is you can ingest carbs like 2 hours beforehand. Okay. But more importantly, cardio. So what cardio does is it puts our body in a lot of stress. That's what it does. If you're doing a long-term movement, our body goes into stress. And stress isn't necessarily bad. It's one of the ways that our body adapts, right? It's like building muscle. We stress out our muscle and then it builds. Okay, but when we go into that much stress and then we release something called cortisol, and cortisol triggers fat storage. So what you want to do to shut down cortisol is actually eat something like a healthy carb. You want to eat an apple or a sweet potato or butternut squash or some sort of healthy carb, because your healthy carb ingestion will release insulin and insulin shuts off cortisol. Okay, so I would, if you like doing cardio, do it on not a full stomach. And then when you're done with cardio, eat a healthy carb. Like my favorite is an apple. Eat an apple. Okay? And that's going to shut down the cortisol, so you're not going to fat storage, and also replenishes the glycogen stores in your muscles, so you don't feel as fatigued. It's a good question. Is it true that when your metabolism is working properly, you eat more or less in this intermittent fasting method anyway? Like not necessarily hungry is often type thing. Yeah, so yes, because there's a mental component there too, right? You get into this like, I can eat anything because I can eat anything within this. If you're doing intermittent fasting properly, it's not bad. It's just that most people are using this as an excuse, or like not as an excuse, but as a way to kind of lose fat, but do it in a wrong way. And what you really need to be looking at is what you're putting in your body, not the times. Okay? And that's another thing, times nutrition. It had its fair play in the diet game too. And time nutrition doesn't actually matter unless you're a bodybuilder or a bikini model, right? If you're not planning on walking on stage in the next couple of weeks, it doesn't matter what time you eat. right? Like, you know, you hear this, well, I can't eat after 7 o'clock. Well, yes, you can. Yes, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. People are doing that to try to, you know, reduce the amount of intake that they have. Time nutrition is really kind of third string to all of these things. Yeah, swimming's fantastic, Chanel. Yeah, swimming's fantastic. So what I would do is I would not, if you swim every morning, swim first, eat after. Other questions? Does this make sense? I hope some of you walk away with a little better understanding of like, love yourself and eat the food. Oh. Good. Oh, I'm glad this was helpful. If anybody has anything that they want me to touch on, like I said, I plan on going live every Monday. It is going to have to be, I just found out that my son's schedule, we have soccer practice every Monday at 5. So I cannot go live any earlier than 7, unfortunately. So I apologize for anybody who's not on this side of the continent. But if you have a topic that you want me to touch on, let me know. I'm happy to do it, put together information for you. If you have any questions that you want to private message me, feel free to do that too. Questions? Don't be afraid of the weights, man. Go lift some things, buy some bands. I just had a great weight session today. So. Awesome. All right, well, this was fabulous. Thanks so much for spending your evening with me. I'm gonna go eat now because I am starving. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. Feel free to DM me. Let me know what you want to talk about next week, or I'll put something together myself, and we'll see you soon. Good night, guys.